Hey, my name is Alexander Joseph Barron. I'm 29 years old. I'm from here, Georgia. I grew up in Gwinnett County, a product of Gwinnett County Public Schools. I was an IB student. I then left there and went to Morehouse College, where I studied international studies for a bit, but ultimately wound up in China, wound up in Heilongjiang University, where I studied Chinese language and literature. From there, I came back. I worked in tech sales and did social media marketing, but have really found a passion in teaching. And so I'm super happy to share my 3 words slash phrases and explain a little bit about myself, and hopefully we can get to know each other a little bit better. I truly believe that anyone who knows me for any extended period of time, and by that I mean probably more than 5 or 6 minutes, knows that at my core I'm a people person. And for me, that matters. I'm a social butterfly. No matter where I am, no matter who I'm with, doesn't matter what political leanings you have, where you're from, what background, I'm going to find some common ground. Or I might sit there in our differences and talk about those as well. I am deeply fascinated by the human experience. And luckily for me, I have billions of other people on this planet who are indeed not me, but are indeed living the human experience. And so for me, being a people person isn't doesn't simply mean I'm a smooth talker or I talk about myself a lot, which I can't do both of those, right? It doesn't mean that it also doesn't mean that I'm necessarily always wanting to be surrounded people, because I do enjoy some time by myself, especially as I get older. However, I am deeply invested in understanding people. And I think one of the reasons that made me a decent marketer and what makes me a really good teacher is that I am deeply concerned with who you are, where you come from. An example, probably one of the greatest compliments I've ever gotten was from a friend of mine in Harbin, China. I had helped him, he had helped me a lot with my dissertation, which is what they call it, but it was a thesis for my undergraduate degree there. And I had helped him a bit with his uh, research around Frederick Douglass. And I was talking to him about, some of the challenges I was having, and he laughed and he said, Alexander, I'm not sure you've ever made an enemy before. I don't know if there's anyone who could not like you. And that's probably one of the highest compliments I've ever received. My early education, I had etiquette classes, and my mother was very deliberate about setting up play dates and things like that. And so I think I was trained to be a people person. I was trained to be mannerable. I was trained to be able to listen to people, pick out the things that are important to them, and then use those things to be points of interest, or anchors, as I like to call them, in our relationship. And hopefully over time, we can create more and more of these anchors that, really makes our relationship steady, regardless of how the seas of life may go. So I definitely consider myself a people person. My mother always says that I love to pontificate. There may be some truth in that. I think many people who become teachers may be accused as such. But what I'm really interested is in debate. I teach debate and philosophy, fifth through eighth grade at the school that I'm currently at, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And I will debate nearly anything. I will take any side of that debate. And that way I'm kind of stoic. You need to be able to talk about both perspectives, or the multiple perspectives that come from the complexity again of the human experience. Debate for me is part of the lifeblood of life. I just love getting into it with people, and I love teaching it because debate is, to me, is an elevated form of communication. It's an elevated form of communication that allows you to express an opinion. And that elevation isn't necessarily in the vernacular, but it's really in both the technique and intent behind it. There are some people who, in my mind, are extraordinarily not eloquent whatsoever. For example, the former president. but wow, is he not a master of communicative techniques? And so debate in that regard requires a partner. But I mean, I could sit here and debate myself, but I don't. People would probably think I'm crazy. So for me, debating is very important. I grew up with intense conversations about God and politics and sexuality and race and those things in the household, and we don't always agree. And so that's very important for me because I think it's important for us to be able to have vehement disagreements, to be able to share our frustrations and anxieties with other people, but to do so in a way that's civil. Even if the other person's particular opinion may be harmful to ourselves, if it's not immediately harmful to your person, then I think there is a way to have those conversations civilly. And so debate is extraordinarily important to me in my personal and professional life. If you've made it this far into my video, I apologize for its length. I thought, oh my goodness, am I going to have enough to say? So if I've rambled a bit, I do apologize, but it is important for me to end this note on ambassador. Kind of through college, late high school, kind of through college, I always saw myself as applying to be a foreign service officer, and that pathway is not completely closed to me yet. However, my time abroad and a little bit about myself is I am taking the master's in teaching to get the T5 certification for Chinese, as well as going for the TESOL endorsement. And in my mind, that's going to allow me to sit in what I call and to help bridge what I call the gap. The gap in education appears in a lot of ways. It may appear in the relevance of what you're teaching, for me, in my case, Chinese, or whether it's math or science, and in students' lives. And that ways we are ambassadors to education. Another gap for me is between the relevance of the world and my students. That my students, helping them understand that they are indeed members of the world. And right now I'm teaching kindergarten through second grade and helping them expand their understanding of the human community is very important. And that way I'm standing in the gap. And so that's ambassadorial, a kind of an ambassador of the world to these children. Probably in a more traditional sense of the word, I have been a visiting scholar or labeled as such at Heilongjiang University in Harbin, China, where I stood in the chasm of misunderstandings between my Chinese students and America, and vice versa, the chasm of American students not understanding China. And so a lot of my work, my life's mission is to be an ambassador. Whether the president appoints me as such or not is no longer a huge point of mine. But when people think of me, I want them to think that's somebody who stands in the gap between what we know and what we don't know, and creates a bridge of human relationships between those two, because that is so important. I talked about being a people person. I talked about being a debater, but at my core, I'm an ambassador. And education is the way through which I do that. For me, being a Chinese speaker, a Mandarin speaker, that makes itself manifest in my profession. And I do intend to take this degree and the knowledge that I've gained here and return to China in the somewhat near future to express myself and to live out that dream in that way. Well, I think I've rambled on for long enough. Thank you so much for listening to this video. If you have, I definitely will do my best to respond to as many comments as possible. If there aren't any, I'm kind of, doing this right here at The Wire, which is another thing about myself. We all have a lot going on in life, and so I often take that to the limit. But here I am. My name again is Alexander Joseph Barron. If you want to know anything about me or you want to collaborate with me, I love to sing. I love to cook. I shake up a mean cocktail. So if you want to do any of those things, feel free to reach out. I am someone who genuinely will become your friend. And I look forward to having class with all of you. Thank you so much.